Welcome back. I am so excited today because I have Jess Bubbico on with me. And as always, I like to give context where I meet people. So I'm just going to give you a quick story, which is a little wild. But if you identify as somebody who's intuitive, you'll be like, oh no, this totally makes sense. Jess wrote a book and I put it in my cart in 2023. And it was just sitting in there forever. And then we decided to get one of Sophie's Christmas presents. So in December, my husband is reading the book out loud to her, and it's a children's book. And he goes, huh, this sounds like you. And I wasn't even paying attention. And like I turned around and I was like, you know what? It kind of does sound like me. And I've never done this before, but I felt the need to see who wrote the book. And then I looked, I'm like, okay, Jess Bubbico. All right. And then I was like, I'm going to reach out to her. Just sounds so weird, but I felt this urge. So, Jess, I think you know this by now, but I can't remember if I went directly to Instagram or if I Googled you and I commented on a post and you responded almost immediately. And then I was like, I'm going to talk to her. So then we just started talking and I'm like, do you want to get on a Zoom? And guys, guess what? I ended up going from like within, I don't know, a couple days of getting this book to inviting her to Bravecation in January, which I think when I invited you, it was like 2 or 3 weeks later. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to be able to come, but I feel like you need to be there. And you're like, actually, it works.
Yeah. So, yes. And then the crazy part was that one of my closest friends, saw that I was on the retreat. And she's like, how do you know Dr. Stephanie? I went to this training that she did or somebody, or her friend did, or she did it. And
Yeah.
literally one of my closest friends. So it was just, it's all meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that retreat workshop that she did, I was co-facilitating it back in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So now fast forward to Bravecation, and Jess was absolutely incredible. The attendees were just raving about you afterwards, which you know, because I told you, but I invited Jess to come back to next year's Bravecation, which I'm going to spill the beans with a little information, but it's going to be international and more info will be coming out soon, but I can't wait to tell you. Jess will be there. Without further ado, though, let's go ahead and just tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me here and for that beautiful introduction. And I love the random ways that the universe brings us together and connects us in like magical, it's so fun to tell the story. So who am I? I'm Jess Bubbico. I do many, many different things, but in the context of what we're talking about today, I work with a system called human design, and it's all about coming back home to yourself and understanding who you are and how you operate and the gifts that you came here to bring to the world. But I think most importantly, it has a lot to do with how you came here to express yourself, the energy that you came to bring to the world. So easy. We all operate so differently from each other, and we don't necessarily come with a manual at birth that we pop out with and hand to our mom or to our partner or to whoever and say, here's how you deal with me. But I actually think human design is one of the closest things that we can get to having an operating manual to say, here's how my energy works. Here's who I am. It's not about taking anything personally or these differences that we experience between us. They're just not personal. They're just who we are. So human design is just really a system that's based in better understanding yourself. And then I also do intuitive work as well. So a lot of work that's a lot of specifically connecting people with loved ones who have crossed over is a lot of where my focus is with my work right now, but also really teaching people to better understand how their own intuition speaks to them, which is very much connected and embedded with human design.
Yes. Okay. So let's rewind and talk about how you got here. I'd love to hear before doing inner work, before being introduced to human design and all of this and realizing, or maybe you always realized you were intuitive. Who knows? You'll let us know. What was life like for you?
Yeah. Like, it's such a great question. Like, where do I want to start? It all started
Yeah.
in the third grade. No, but it honestly actually kind of did start somewhere around the third grade. But when I was a kid, I always knew I was very intuitive and very
Hmm.
sensitive to energy. A lot of what that came with was anxiety. I was a
Hmm.
very anxious kid. I had a lot of separation anxiety. I didn't like being away from my family, even if it was like going to kindergarten, those kinds of things. But I was
Yeah.
always very sensitive to the world around me. When I was in middle school, I lost a lot of people that were close to me. A very good friend's mom suddenly passed away. And like a
Mm.
week before she passed away, she came to me and was like, just promise me you'll always take care of her daughter's name. And
Wow.
I remember being like, that was so weird. Like, I don't know why she said that to me. And then she
Yeah.
suddenly passed away a week later. And so I
Oh.
always felt this kind of connection with her after she crossed over. And then a series, I probably in middle school lost like 5 or 6 people who were in my world. And I think
Yeah.
I always had this curiosity about it. And I can remember I'd go to the store with my mom and I would always try to guess like down to the penny what the bill was going to be at the checkout counter. And I can just remember I would get it right a lot of the time. I'd be like a cent
Yeah.
or two off. But
Yeah.
I think I just always had this continued fascination with intuition.
Hmm.
And when you're a kid, you're so open. Well, they're so open to energy.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what ended up happening was I was born on the same day as my mom and my grandmother. So all three of us,
Wow.
yeah, which is March 22nd. So it's coming up on Saturday. So the
That's
three of
Annabella's
us,
due date or was her
no
due date.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we were all born March 22nd. And when I was in high school, I was maybe 15 years old. My grandmother was crossing the street, was killed by a drunk driver.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
my mom and my grandmother are both very intuitive. And I remember there was a night I was talking to my mom. When I would go to bed at night, I would lay in bed with kind of the covers up over my head. And I
Mhm.
would call it like praying to my grandmother. I grew up Roman
Mm.
Catholic. I would
Yeah.
just talk to her in my head and I'd have
Yeah.
these conversations. And so my mom had said, I really want to have a dream about grandma, but I'm having trouble dreaming about her.
Mm.
And I remember that night, I was like, well, I talked to grandma in my head. I'll just tell her. I'm like, Grandma, mom wants to have a dream about you. But the thing that was different about that night is I could feel someone sitting on my bed rubbing my back.
My
And I was
gosh.
15. And
Yes.
I'm thinking, I'm crazy. So I'm like, Grandma, if you're here,
Yeah.
go visit mom. And the next morning, my mom woke up and she said, I had a crazy dream. I was looking through a keyhole into your bedroom and I could see grandma sitting on your bed.
Oh, I have full body goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's so crazy.
Yeah.
So the door was always open.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I did not grow up in a woo woo family at all.
Yeah.
Like we weren't super religious, but we still like kind of did the church thing and
Yeah.
all of that. I went on to grad school for speech therapy. And when I left, I remember getting my first job and being like, this 9 to 5 situation ain't gonna work for me. Like the way that we're doing traditional sign a contract. I was like, this is
Yes.
not gonna work.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to a psychic. She was local in Charlotte, which is where I was living at the time. And I was like, I don't know what to do with my career. And I'm pretty sure I can connect with people who've crossed over. I started studying with her. I went to one of her events. I started taking some classes with her. And she happened to have a woman who would come to her workshops who was also a medium, also named Jess. So
Wow.
I started working with Jess. And it's so funny when I think back on it. This was like 2014.
Yeah.
I would go to her house and we would sit on her. She had like this beautiful back closed in patio that she
Mm.
had done up. And we'd sit there and she taught me how to do intuitive work. When I say she taught me to do intuitive work, we would do exercises where she'd give me a sealed envelope and she
Yes.
would put a picture inside of the envelope and I'd put it behind my hands and we'd do a little tune in and she'd go, okay, tell me what's on the picture inside the envelope. That's the kind of stuff we would do. I have tons of stories I could tell you, so I try to
I
give you
love
kind
it.
of the most potent ones.
Yeah.
But what kept coming through most potently was like number one, sensing where the energy was off with someone or where the energy wanted to go. It's like a frequency reader. Like that doesn't feel quite right to me. I'm not sure
Hmm.
that opportunity is quite right, or there might be something else coming in.
Yes.
And mediumship. And so I remember she gave me this envelope and she's like, okay, close your eyes. And I want you to use your third eye and read what is inside of this envelope. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, I'm making this up.
Right.
And I remember seeing, and this is what I'll say, like, I'm still skeptical of all of this because sometimes the things that happen feel so hard to believe from a logical level that I
Yeah.
still have my inner skeptic. So I'm
Yes.
sitting there and I'm like, okay, what's in here? And immediately what comes to mind is I can still see it in my mind's eye. A little girl with red hair blowing out birthday candles at a birthday party. And she's centered in the center of the picture and there's kids on either side. So I'm describing it. And all of a sudden I was like, there's a man over her shoulder, like standing here behind her.
Mm-hmm.
And I got overcome with sadness. And I'm like, and
Mm.
she's like, so tell me more about the man. And I'm like, he's sad. I think he maybe took his own life. Like there was a lot of stuff coming up with it. So she takes me through, we're going, going, going. And then she's like, okay, come out of it, open your eyes, open up the envelope. And I kid you not, I open this envelope and it is a little girl sitting at her birthday party with red hair. And Jess has red hair. So it was her from like, I think the 70s, blowing out birthday candles. And I'm like, what? But there's no man behind her.
Mm.
And I was like, what's going on? Her dad's father had passed away and no one was able to get in contact with him. And so he had actually come through. And I remember she was like, will you do a reading for my dad? And I'm like brand new at this. So I was scared to
Yeah.
death to
Yeah.
like have to do it. But I saw the beauty and the healing that comes when we connect someone with somebody that's passed away because I think it brings reassurance and a sense of peace that that person is still there.
Yes. Yes.
Go
Are
ahead.
you emotional?
Yeah, it's bringing up a little bit for me because I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's powerful when you see that closure, like that loop of closure. Because I think so often we have these people that we feel so connected to,
Yeah.
and then they pass away and we're like, well, they're gone. But there's so much beauty. And I have another story I'll tell later on. So don't just keep telling stories. That just helps us remember we're not alone. They're always there for us. And I think one of the things I've had to learn to remember is to ask for support and to open myself to the signs that they're there.
Yeah. I feel like you're saying this for one of my clients right now. She's pretty new in Brave Academy and her dad passed away several years ago, but it's been just really challenging for her. And I'm going to send this to her when it comes out because I think it will help. I want to interject in a small way here, and I'll speak from myself. I know there's other people that will resonate with this, and so I'm wondering how you're going to respond. I have always identified as having great intuition. I, not like you, but I had moments where as a kid, I was in my room and I would sense something was about to happen and it happened, and many times. And then as I got into my teens and early 20s, I think I moved away from it a lot. And I was following like, you should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't do this. And so I disconnected from the intuition. And then my mid to late 20s through now, it's been a reconnecting to my intuition. However, there was always a line in my head around like psychic, intuition, yes. And now that's not how I feel anymore because the more that I'm open to things, the more open I am to things.
Yep.
However, I'm like, my mind is going back to me at 25 and wondering how you would describe this to like, I don't know. I mean, maybe you're like, I don't know. And that's okay too. But like to help me see more clearly and or if someone were really religious, sometimes I know that there's a fear that this is like the black, I can't think of the word, but like, and,
like
and
the
to
black
me,
plague.
and to
It's
me,
bad.
it's like the same that it's coming. It's like God speaking through you is how I see it now. Anyways, I'm going to turn it over to you and just see what,
I love that you're asking this because I've had to really work through my own stuff around it as well, because one of the things that I've worked through is this weird feeling of I didn't choose this for myself.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of energy around that. Like I didn't necessarily choose. Like you could say, like, you could argue, like, well, you were talking to your grandma when you were going to sleep at night. And so, like, technically you did.
You did, Jess.
You did, you know, but like at the same time, I'm like, well, I didn't expect anybody to answer in the same way that I could think about, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like an actress that I could think in my head, like they're so far away from me. The only one that's coming to mind is like Blake Lively because of all the stuff that's going on. Like,
Yeah.
I could be thinking about Blake Lively and be like, you know, I'm feeling this way about you or that way. And I don't expect her to answer. It was kind of the same way for me with my grandparents. I was like, I don't know, they're somewhere else. So here's what I would say. I can only speak from my experience.
Yeah.
When I have shared my experiences with people of mediumship or connecting with my grandma, usually people will say to me, I don't know that I've ever gotten, I'm scared or there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I've gotten, it almost gives people a doorway or permission to say, like, oh, yeah, this weird thing happened to me once too. Or like, oh, yeah, my grandma comes to me as a cardinal.
Yeah.
I think it opens a doorway when you give people permission to explore it. If I had to explain it to someone's younger self, I really would go the route of everyday intuition, which is, have you ever had an experience where you thought about a friend and then they called you?
Yes.
Or, I don't know, like you said, like you just got a bad feeling about something, you went a different direction, and then there was a car accident and you were spared from the car accident, right? So for me, I think we can all relate to those things because we've all had those moments that seem random, but actually aren't.
What if they're not coincidences?
Exactly.
Ever.
And we're so used to paying attention to our minds. 7 or 8 years ago, I really started doing this work with others in like 2015. People were less open in 2015. Consciousness has shifted a lot in 10 years. And what I would say is, I think there's a way of speaking about it. When you're paying attention to logic and you're making all your decisions based on logic, you know exactly how to make the decision. Like, I'm going to sit, I'm going to ruminate on it, I'm going to ask my mom, I'm going to talk to my friend, I'll discuss it with my husband. Like, you have these surefire ways of making decisions. And people tend to make intuitive decisions, or they've made an intuitive decision before, but they haven't so much paid attention to what's consistent about how they make that decision. Oh, it's always a gut. I always feel it in my gut.
Yeah.
And even though I talk to my mom and my partner and this person and this person, ultimately I'll get a gut kick on whether it's correct for me or not.
Yes. Yes.
And so they think all the other stuff is what helps them come to the decision, but actually there's probably a part of their body and their intuition that's helping them to make the decision.
I love this. Can you outline the most common ways that people tend to mine? I feel like I just know, and you gave me the word, it's an urge. Because, but I don't know why. I just know I should reach out to Jess. It's kind of weird, but it just, okay. Yeah.
So I would say there's a few ways. I think that everybody has, we could look at human design, and human design is going to give us language to describe that. I don't think it's only limited to the human design language. So as an example, you might be somebody who gets an urge. Like, you're like, I don't know why, I just have to do this. My body is almost pushing me towards this thing. But you might also get like chills down your spine when you hear something that's correct for you. You might get, for me, it's almost like my energy is like I don't want to say it's a lie detector, because it's not about detecting a lie, but it's like an energy detector. I'm like, that feels weird to me, or it feels correct. I had a situation where I had to make a decision on something, and logically I was like, this is the dumbest thing. I'm not saying yes to this, but my body was like, this is correct, and I just need to go for it.
Yeah.
And so I trusted my body. It ended up being a great decision.
Oh.
So I would say feeling, a felt sense, a gut, like kind of my gut is saying yes or my gut saying no, might give you a queasy feeling, or it might give you an excited, lit up feeling. Dreams are huge. I have extremely vivid dream times. So you might be somebody who has very vivid dreams that are very prophetic. You might get an image in your mind's eye that you could like see yourself doing the thing, Again, it's because we've been taught not to listen to it. it seems random, but it's actually probably pretty consistent. Like if you're listening to this podcast, I would actually sit down and write out, like journal on, like when my intuition has spoken to me about a decision,
Mhm.
what has happened in my body? What did it feel
Mm.
like? What images came through? What did my knowingness? Like you said, you just know. My mom is extremely psychic, like so psychic. She just knows things. And it's so
Yes.
funny. My brother-in-law, who's like not into this stuff at all, the other day was like, it's so annoying how right your mom is about things. Like she just knows stuff. And I'm like, it is annoying. It's so annoying, but she just does. And so I've learned to trust it, you know?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
I love that. And for
Mhm.
me, I shared that I had disconnected from my intuition. And then when I started reconnecting, I felt like I didn't know. And one tool, I had a coach at the time, this was in 2016, that she gave me, she's like, start paying attention for something sweeping across like your mind really quickly. And before
Mhm.
it just went so fast you didn't even notice it, and just like grab onto it and then do that thing. And so the more that I did that, the more that I was like, oh, like this is a thing. And I think for me that's connected to the urge. It's like reach out to Jess like real quick. And the more that I do it, the easier it is to know this is my intuition, and the stronger it gets. And I love that.
Yes. So the way that I think about it, information and energy is subtle. It's subtle energy. I have my cell phone here. This is like hard, tangible, slow moving energy. The
Mhm.
reason why we can see a cell phone right now, even though it's kind of blurry, the reason we can see a cell phone is because the energy molecules are slowed down so much that they look like a physical form. Subtle energy, like thought energy, like a thought sweeping through or a person feeling something, like you can't catch a thought with your hand and hold it like you can with a
Mm,
phone. You can't
yes.
catch an emotion and hold on to it. You can hold it and feel it.
Yeah.
It moves
It's different.
fast.
Yeah.
So, like you said, basically what I'm hearing you say is like presence. You had to become
Mm,
present and
yes.
breathe and slow down yourself enough to be able to sense the subtleties coming through. Like last weekend, out of nowhere, I had this thought that came through my mind, and I pay attention to everything. I'm like, if I'm
Yeah.
having a thought about something, there's probably a reason. And this thought came through that was like, I'm kind of sad that I lost touch with my college girlfriends. Like,
Mm,
we're good friends. We were always good friends. Nothing happened. I just haven't made an effort to connect with
yeah.
them lately. And I just sat with it for a second. I was like, it would be really nice to see them. Well, yesterday, three of them, I got a group text message. They're all coming to Miami and they want to hang out next weekend.
I
You
love
know,
it.
and my
Yeah.
best bet is they probably last week started planning this trip and said, we should ask Jess if she's around. Once we get it planned, we can go and see if she wants to
Mm-hmm.
come down, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So pay attention to everything. Make notes, write down random thoughts that come to mind because we're processing energy from the environment all the time. Now, this is why, like working with you, someone like you, where you really help people learn their patterns, because
Yeah.
sometimes it is old fears that are coming to the surface or
Yeah.
old anxieties or limiting beliefs or whatever. And I think working with people who can help you discern that is also
Mm-hmm.
very important.
Mm,
Is this an old thing I stuffed down that wants to get
right.
released? Or is it actually my intuition? I think is important too.
Yes. 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 Thank you
Hmm.
for saying that. I agree. I'm curious to hear your response on this. My experience is that a lot of times I'll have an intuitive hit come through, and then it's followed by fear later. And
Mm,
I've witnessed other people start questioning themselves and if they made the wrong decision and this and that, if they followed the intuition because the fear came. I tend to recognize like that might come. The example in my mind is I knew when I needed to leave NASA, and like I was very clear it didn't make sense. My husband's like, I thought you loved working there. I do.
yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
I did. And like, it's time to go. And then I put in my notice, and I felt for 7 days, I thought I was going to throw up. And that was like all the fear, the reality of like, oh my gosh. But I knew to follow. No, I was clear before I got scared. Do you tend to see that as like a common thing that people experience?
I think especially in the beginning, that always happens because usually I feel like the reason people start seeking answers is because something's out of alignment in their life, but they've
Mhm.
created whatever they've created because it felt safe for them. When you really start stepping out of your normal routine, you're going to probably experience that fear because it might feel like such a leap to go from where you are to
Yeah.
what you know and your truth. And I
Mhm.
think once you start aligning with your truth, it becomes easier to follow your intuition and to also say, like, yeah, fear is always going to follow me. The way I see it is like you have your limbic system inside of
Yeah.
your body, which is your nervous system. It's helping regulate you, but actually, that's the same electrical system that helps us process our intuition. So
Mm.
it's kind of like the same system that intuitively knows we need to move forward is the same one that's trying to keep us safe. So I think we have to
Mhm.
learn to really like regulate and slow down and work with our nervous system to train it to know that the unknown is actually safe.
Yes. And isn't it all unknown always?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
Somebody asked me a question yesterday and she made it like a group question for the women in Brave Academy. And she's like, who else is afraid of the unknown? And I was like, well, I can answer this one for you. Everyone.
Yeah.
Like
All of
the
us.
brain just wants things to be known
Yeah.
because that feels safe. And when
Yeah.
we recognize that, then okay, this is not abnormal and it's kind of always unknown,
Yeah.
maybe
And I
more than
think
kind of.
too, yeah. And I think something too that was coming to me as you were talking is that everybody's unknown looks different. So I had created a life where I was moving from place to place, constantly leaping out of my comfort zone. And actually, my fear came from slowing down and living a normal, like a
Mm,
quote, normal life. So getting an apartment and committing to living somewhere
yeah.
was my unknown. I think about like nervous system regulation. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
well, we know that you've got a community where people can come and talk to like minded people and they can help them work through the fear,
Yeah.
or we can breathe or do different techniques. So
Yes. Yeah.
that's why I actually think nervous system regulation and intuitive work kind of go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah. That's step one when people come in is that we do a nervous system recalibration to
Mhm.
regulate. So absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned, well, everybody's unknown is different because that's true. I mean, people will say, oh, I want to change. I don't want to be like this, but there's a part of you that feels safe because it's predictable, even if you don't like it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
Okay. So, anything else you want to share about your story or what tuning into your intuition has done for you?
I like really want to share this story of something that
Okay.
happened last week
Yeah.
because if I was going to a personal trainer and I was like really struggling with weight,
Mhm.
having someone who's also struggled with weight for me is helpful because I'm like, oh, you get my challenge.
Yes.
And everything with intuition, like I've struggled with owning throughout the years. And that skeptical mind, talk about like, okay, in numerology, like I'm a life path 7. The life path 7 is the skeptical spiritualist,
Mm,
it loves science and it loves spirituality. And it's always trying to find that balance.
yes.
And I listen to my intuition on a day-to-day basis. I do readings for people. And there's still that part of my mind that comes in that's like, this has got to, like, is this really, this is too crazy for
Yeah.
me to, this is crazy. And I want to just say to people, like, start where you are with intuition. We're kind
Yes.
of going all the way into like, I see dead people, that's like kind of like, I feel like that's kind of like as far as you go in like the intuitive space.
Yes. Yes.
But you can start listening to your gut. You can start paying attention to where you get chills, all of this kind of stuff. So maybe like a year ago, I had a teacher back in 2014 who was really into the angels. And I was like, I don't know if I believe in this stuff. Like the angels,
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
We'll see. So something happened. I guess it was last year when all the hurricanes came through Florida.
Mhm.
And I actually had an experience where the angels started coming to me in my dreams and they started coming through in colors. And so I bought a book by Kyle Gray called Angel Prayers.
Yeah.
And this book is all about the archangels and how they work with us and whatever. Is this a video, by the way? Is this video going to be,
Yeah.
people can be able to see? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So then I can show you my visuals.
Yes.
So
There's also just an audio piece, so not everybody will see the visual, but it's on YouTube. If you're listening right now and you're like, wait, I want to see.
Come watch.
Yes.
Come give Dr. Stephanie's YouTube channel some love because this is a good story. So I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 Sundays ago. I was like, I lost touch with the angels. Like, I really want to reconnect back with them because the way that I understand a lot of energy, and this is similar, people will talk about this with like manifestation and even just going for what you want. It's like you got to claim what you want. You got to say it out loud. You got to ask for help and you have to ask for support. And this goes with loved ones who have crossed over as well. So Sunday night, I'm like, I'm going to start connecting with the angels again. Like tomorrow morning, I'm getting up, I'm going to do my little angel meditation. So I wake up and I'm like, good morning, angels, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just here, like, go out to the beach, go to sunrise. So I'm like, okay. So I go downstairs. I don't have my glasses on. And I'm like, okay, angels, like, we're going to have a conversation. And I'm walking out of my building and I live in like a retirement home, basically. Like everybody, it's not like woo woo central with people with like,
Right.
woo woo stuff going on. I'm walking outside and I see something on the ground and I'm like, what is that? I'm like, that looks like an oracle card. And I look on the ground and there's an oracle card on the ground, an angel card, in fact.
Oh my
You
gosh.
see the feathers on there? So I'm seeing these angel feathers and I'm like, tell me that's an oracle card on the ground. I turn it over and it's this Angels of Unity card.
Gosh.
And it's a group of people connecting with an angel. And I'm like,
what are the chances?
yeah. So I'm like, okay. And in my mind, I'm like, somebody must have been walking home. They went to a new moon circle. They dropped it on the ground, whatever. How cool that I saw it. Like, thanks, angels. I go out to the beach and I'm like talking and like asking questions. I'm like, this is what I need help with. Like, I'm leaving it up to you. And I love the African proverb that's like, as you pray, move your feet. So it's not like, help, I need help. I'm going to do nothing and retreat. It's like,
right.
I'm saying what I need. I'm putting it out there. I'm letting it go and I'm going to go about my life.
Yes.
I'm walking back from the beach and there's tarot cards on the ground. Literally 2 tarot cards, which is the Queen of Swords and the Knight of Swords. And I'm like,
yes.
Well, that perfectly answers the question I had. Like, it's not the same cards. That's wild.
Yeah, totally different deck.
So I go down to the woman at the front desk that night and I said, listen, found these cards. If somebody comes looking for them, just send me a message and I'll bring them downstairs. But this is crazy. She looks at me and she goes, Jess, I don't think anybody in this building, those cards belong to anybody in this building. I'm like, I don't either, but let's just see. So then 2 days later, I had brought my book to school to work with the kids and show them the book. And I was thinking about my grandmother who I put in the book and her name's Nellie. So I'm like, okay, grandma, if you're around, like, give me a sign. I'm open. I go to Home Goods later that day after work and I see Nellie's dish soap and it's a woman waving and it says Nellie's across it. So I snap a picture and I send it to my dad and I go, look, I asked grandma for a sign and look what she gave me. And he just like sent back a heart or whatever. He tolerates me. And so
he tolerates me.
This is 2 days later. Okay.
Okay.
I've been out to the beach multiple times. I come upstairs, I'm hanging out and I'm like, I should go downstairs and like talk to the angels. This is really cool. So I'm walking out and I'm like, okay, angels, I'm listening. And not at the exit of the building, not near a building, about like over by the grill out that way. I see something fall out of the sky, like literally fall out of the sky. And I'm like, that looked like it was a piece of paper. So I go and I walk over there and this is what was on the ground. The Angels of Remembrance card with a woman.
Oh my gosh. And the grandparents?
Talking to her grandparents.
Oh my word.
And you'll know this from the Jessie Lou book.
Yes.
There's a little ladybug, which is the symbol in the book that I gave to my grandmother. Nellie turns into a little ladybug at the end of the book. And I had done that because I gave my grandfather, which was her husband, this symbol when he passed away. I was like, let's communicate through a ladybug. So the moral of my story is, and believe me, I checked the area. I'm like, where did this fall out of? Did it come out of the tree? Like, what happened? No, it fell out. I watched it fall out of the sky. It's just this idea that like we're always supported, and we can ask for support. We can assign little symbols to our loved ones that we can give them and, ask them to come through whenever you see this symbol or that symbol, or we don't have to have the answers to everything. Again,
Yeah.
as you pray, move your feet. As you intend, still move your feet in the real world, but you're always supported all the
Mhm.
time.
Always. I have a
Hmm.
phrase that I say to myself and to my clients, and as if the universe says this, baby, I've got you
Hmm.
all the time. And I like imagine, well, if they're not watching the video, like my two hands are open, like holding, because when we take the time to reflect on life, everything always works out. Maybe not the way we envisioned it, maybe not the way we, cognitively wanted it, but it's always ends up okay
Every single time.
every
Yep.
single time.
And I think when you trust in the mystery of life and recognize, I got really into manifestation and I still love manifestation, but I got really into manifestation and felt like I was supposed to be guiding what I wanted to happen. And I do think we need to have that to some degree, but I think there's a level of like letting go of how things come in and what they look like. Intend, know where you want to go, but also be
Mhm.
delighted if things go a different direction than you thought. Like, I didn't think I was ever going to go back to speech therapy. I was like, I'm never doing
Yeah.
that again. And it's so fulfilling for me. And if
Yes.
my life hadn't shifted in the ways that it did, I wouldn't have gone back to it. But I look back on it and I'm like, well, thank God it did because it needed to.
I remember
So,
the first time that we talked about the value of, I can't remember the way that you worded it, but just going to, traditional school for speech language pathology. There's a lot that isn't taught, particularly for those who've been through trauma and that being related to why they need a speech therapist. And so, as you were talking to me about that, I think I got goosebumps at the time. And I was like, this feels so good. And I can see how much more value you would offer to your patients, clients. What do you call them?
yeah, I would say, yeah, right now, my kids, like my kids at school.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it. In my 20s, I thought, oh, I'm not doing it right. I use my intuition so much with intuition or with speech therapy. I'm supposed to be like, no, go point A, B, C, do it exactly
Hmm.
like you were taught. And
Hmm.
now I'm like, oh, this is good. These kids need
Yeah.
emotional regulation. And
Yeah.
there's so many different things. And one of the things I've noticed is if I bring them into a certain space where there's a lot of space versus actually bringing them into a smaller room, they actually do a lot better when they're in a space that they kind of feel held. I think they feel held inside of versus having these big open spaces. So you start to notice these little
That makes
nuances and
sense to me.
differences. Yeah.
Hmm. When my daughter, I have one who's a deeply feeling child. I
Yeah.
bring her into her room. I stay there with her, and it helps her get through those cycles. Yeah.
Yep.
So just what you're
Totally.
saying. Yeah, absolutely. This has
Yeah.
been so good. Anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. I just always tell people like trust yourself. You're not crazy for whatever you feel like is calling you in a certain direction in a certain
Hmm.
way. And one of the things that my intuition I've learned, especially over like the last 6 months, is not just to trust when I'm being called to do something, but also trust when I'm being called to pause and take a sacred pause and let things work themselves out. I think so many of us, especially of women, have been programmed, conditioned to do and
Yeah.
to feel like we have to fix everything by doing, but there's so much
Hmm.
power in slowing down because I think that's when you can start to truly hear yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm glad you said that. I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
have one last question I want to
Yeah.
ask, and that
Mm.
is, the name of this podcast is the Broken and Brave podcast. And so a lot of women who are listening have had at least moments where they feel broken, which might be emotionally, mentally, or physically, or some combination of that. If someone were feeling broken, what advice would you give them?
What's coming to mind, I'm getting this image of like a vase that breaks open.
Yeah.
And I'm getting this like letting yourself be held in your broken pieces and not always feeling like you have to immediately put yourself back together. Because
Hmm.
I think about a caterpillar in a chrysalis. If it identifies so strongly with what the chrysalis is and it doesn't allow itself to break open and be messy for a second, it's never going to be able to spread its wings and fly.
Yeah.
And I think we're so used to, oh, and it's 222, which is like my angel number. So,
Yep, of
yeah.
course.
I think when we need to give ourselves sometimes more space to just be in the brokenness not wallow there, but actually
Yeah.
to be held and get curious and
Mhm.
understand perhaps why this is happening and what it's leading to. Because I think it was Steve Jobs said, you can always connect the dots looking backwards, but it's
Mhm.
hard to connect them looking forward. So it will make sense in time.
Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful metaphor too. And where's the best place for people to find you?
I would say jessbubbico.com or Jess Bubbico on Instagram. That's my handle. I'm going to be relaunching my podcast, which is the On the Roof podcast with Jess. So that'll be coming up. You'll have to come on my podcast as well
I'd
as I
love
get
to.
that going and
Yes.
talk about all your expertise. I feel like we talk about me all of the time because you've had me on your stuff, but I want to hear all of your stories as well.
Oh,
So,
sure. I'm
yeah.
happy to share. Yes. Okay. So I'll put that in the show notes if you're listening, just to make it easy to find Jess. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.